Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So this is pastel study number 2 and this week I decided I'm going to do a cat's eye. Very similar to the first pastel study, there are no visible true textures in my opinion in this drawing, so I completely did not do any of the fur surrounding the eye. I just did the eye itself. And what's different, so every study I would kind of want to do a step up from the previous one. So in the first study it was very much the same color families, just blues and obviously some black and white in there in between as well, whereas this one has a much wider range of colors than the first one. So it's a lot more orange tones, greens, blacks, reds and yellows, and just a play on getting everything to look correct and not muddy, which I think I achieved in the end. And it's also very important to not get that muddy look when working with colors. I think for this study I did maybe use a lot more colors than I would have if I was more experienced in pastel pencils, but I did achieve the results in the end. There's definitely, when I stood back and just viewed all the pencils I use, which is in the description box below, as well as the little videos showing which ones I used. I think in the end I would definitely have been able to take out a few of the colors. I think the colors that I used with the larger pastel sticks, which were much more appropriate for the colors that I used in this drawing. But in the end I was quite happy with the way it looked. Some might say that the textures of the eye is still a texture, but I think it's just more a play of the colors and getting everything correct. I was quite happy with the reflections as well that I achieved in the end. So those were the ones that I put in right in the beginning. And then just starting on with the surrounding areas of the eye first, the darks, and then going in with just green and yellow for the eye itself. From there I started to kind of play around with the pencils itself, using different colors just to get that nice range and that it doesn't look flat. I also didn't want to get that muddy look, so I think in the end I did achieve that, even though I used a lot more colors than I probably would have or needed to. I think in the end I did get there as well. So these are only 2 studies that I've done for now. So the techniques and the kind of style, I would say, is definitely starting to develop, but not entirely there yet. I do prefer still working with the blending stumps and the brushes, and that I quite enjoy using that to blend out the pastels instead of using my fingers. I might later on get me those kind of softer blending stumps, the ones they use with the pan pastels, and I might get myself pan pastels somewhere along the line if I start to venture more into larger full portraits or working with the backgrounds. But I think the pastel sticks are quite, I think, sufficient for now, and they do kind of give me what I want. So I'm thoroughly enjoying the pastel sticks. I think once I go into larger drawings, they'll become quite useful and more of a staple than the actual pencils, and they also save the pencils in the end, just for the detail work and the finer colored areas. So I didn't find the blending of the colors particularly difficult, nor choosing the correct colors in the color family to get what I wanted. Like I did already mention, I might have used a few extras in between, which wasn't necessary, but I think I was quite accurate with what I wanted it to look like, and quite accurate to the reference as well for color wise. Now I have to kind of reiterate that these beginning pastel studies, I'm not going for complete accuracy to the reference, so there are definitely certain things that obviously I'll be able to achieve more along the line, being able to replicate the reference realistically, like I would be able to for my graphite pencils. So these, you can think of these beginning pastel studies as me just trying to get the vibe of the drawing. So the colors to me are more important as well as the blending and getting those correct layering effects with them. Being able to create my contrast, my highlights, and my shadows, and all the midtones in between. And then from there, once we start moving into fuller textures, then we can start playing around with that. But since I'm not yet putting everything together with textures, detail, size, and different components of a drawing together, I'm not too worried about it being completely accurate to the drawing, to the reference. So the reference is linked in the description box, so you can definitely have a look at that and be able to see kind of where I decided not to be completely accurate to the reference. So I kind of, with the rims of the eyes, I didn't pay too much attention. They're kind of just there to fill out the area so that the eyeball itself doesn't just look like a random thing on the page. Just to frame it a little bit more. And obviously I just didn't put in the fur at all. And then there's some of the color work within the eyeball as well, with the yellows and the greens and the kind of those reddish, ochre, orangey tones that I didn't completely try and recreate as accurately as possible. So if this was my graphites, it would have taken a lot longer because I would have been able to accurately recreate those areas. But since I'm trying a completely new medium, I'm following also my own advice just to kind of dumb it down for myself and ignore certain areas which I will know will come later on. But I don't want to spend too much time in getting sucked into those details and lose the entire point of this study or this exercise. So this was purely a color study, purely a blending study, nothing more, nothing less. I'll probably be doing similar things to this study and the first one for the next one or two. Today was either going to be this eye, or I was going to start playing around with textures. But like I said in the first video, the first textures I'm going to do are going to be very, very basic textures, very monotone-ish colors, so very similar to the first pastel drawing I did, which was just the fabric, the blue fabric. So just following my own advice and building up this step by step. But I think this was a good in-between, having one completely monotone drawing and then one that's got a bit more of a fuller range of colors. So this one is a bit more warm toned compared to the first drawing. So obviously still playing around with different ranges in the colors, but learning which kind of also being able to differentiate between the warm tones and the cool tones, which in the end will come in handy when I have to do full drawings, when there's full ranges of shadows and highlights that will span that entire cool and warm tone to get that full realistic effect. So I'm being very diligent to slowly, step by step, like a staircase, and not try and skip a few stairs or steps in between. And just make it easier for me to digest the new medium, and also make it easier to follow kind of how I would have approached this if I was teaching someone graphite pencils. Like I said, following my own advice and just completely dumbing it down for myself. But I thoroughly enjoyed this drawing, and I think it's also a lot more confident with putting down the pastels on the paper as well. It kind of progressed in the first drawing, and I would say if I was to redo that drawing now, it would definitely be a lot bolder from the start and maybe even a lot quicker than the first study. So this one was about half the time, about 35 minutes. So definitely getting there, but it's still smaller in size. So with all these drawings that I will be doing in this series will not be very large. Once at the end of the year or maybe halfway through the year, do a drawing That's a bit more of a full portrait. So if I was to do a full portrait now after the first drawings, it will be probably an animal with short fur, monotone colors, so not a full range, so not a patchy animal, not something with stripes or spots. Obviously something with maybe a warmer tone, because I do prefer warmer colors over cooler colors, so nothing in the gray range, probably something more of the browns and the oranges and the ochres, and you know, something maybe interesting. Maybe I would have by then touched on leather, or you would know more the fabricy type collars, so maybe something interesting like that. But very happy with how this study ended up, and looking forward to the next one. So I'm planning on doing the next one this month as well. So my plan is to do 2 a month. February I was quite sick, so that did not happen. But definitely, so that's the plan for this year, is to maybe do a very basic full portrait middle of the year, and then in the end do something quite larger and substantial that would be on par with maybe an A3 or A4 graphite drawing. So that's the plan, and I think it's going quite swell. I just need to be more diligent and very disciplined with this, but enjoying the medium so far and all the colors. It's definitely something to think about, and it gets the brain working with graphite. Unless it's very highly detailed and a new texture, I don't think about it much. So this is fun, and I hope you enjoyed the first study. I'm also going to be posting this drawing and the first drawings real-time versions as well, if you want to have a little draw along. But yeah, hope you enjoy this and also get to learn something new from a newbie to the pastel world. So that's kind of the whole point, to see how someone would approach a new medium like this. But anyways, happy drawing, and I'll see you all for the next one. Cheers!